Have you been told lately that your body is a symptom of the woke mind virus? The woke mind virus that started over a decade ago that was urging everyone globally to reevaluate their own biases towards others' bodies? Do you have any flaws in your genetic code, aka your genes? Not your denim attire, but your genetic code. Do you feel as though your body has always been reduced down to micro trends in pop culture? Well, do I have the video for you?
This is a story, well, commentary actually, about them. This is Naima, an overstimulated 24-year-old who hasn't been excited in a long time. You may wonder why. Well, I'm about to explain, just give me a second. When you look at Naima, what do you notice first? Is it their stunning eyes, their new hair of the moment, their stylish clothes, their big forehead, the baby hands and feet? No, it's probably their blackness and fatness. Yes, Naima is fat, and has been for most of their life. They've always had a problem finding representation for their looks in media. They've always been drawn into boy-crazy movies, comedies and chick flick. But there's barely any representation for people like Naima. As a true early 2000s cinephile, Naima has always wondered, will anyone ever make a film or series that centers around someone like me? Naive, young, whimsical, off-putting, stylish and fat. It's not lost upon me that yes, the Parkers literally exist, but it ended in 2004 when Naima was 3. 21 years later, nothing has hit in the same way. And why is it? Let's follow our existential lead and their journey of discovery.
Live, rolling, and in color. It is I, Naima, also known as Bunny Online, the AMB, and today I wish to discuss the gag of plus-size representation. So, the lens of scope for this video will primarily focus on black, femme, plus-size representation, but that doesn't mean that this is the only representation that matters when it comes to plus-size representation in the film and media space. All representation matters. Talk that tea. Especially for plus size fat people. All plus size lives matter. Clock that tea. Clock it. I will delve into history, talk to a few lovely folks, and make a few discoveries along the way. I have no clue how long this video will be, but I hope that you're willing to hear me out, correct me if I'm wrong, and discuss your own findings and experiences down in the comments below. And if you haven't already, please make sure that you subscribe. I'm a yapper, and I love being able to yap on this channel about topics that deeply interest me, such as race, being plus size, and neurodivergent. So, if you're interested in that, please subscribe to me today. And you're catching a deal, a special if you will, because you're catching that subscription at the cost of free $99. Let's get into the video. Plus size representation. Let's go over data. I will now be reading off from the Rep Project's All Bodies Report, representations of fat women and girls in Hollywood. This report came out in 2022. So here's the caveat. Despite 42.5% of US women living in large body types, no popular films, keyword popular films from the past decade center around the life of a fat girl or woman. That does not mean that there are no films that came out in the past decade that centers around the life of a plus size woman. That doesn't mean that. What that means is popularity, meaning that a great number of the population tuned in and bought tickets to watch said film, who streamed said film. Keep that in mind. So happy we got that out the way. But we have found that there are large gaps in representation for all people of color. I know we hate the term so bad, guys. I know. But When it comes to non-white people, we have found large gaps in representation for non-white fat people, specifically women characters. Listed here, they have stated that black women, when it comes to representation, are reportedly to be seen in at least 14.9% of media. Black women and Asian women are considered the more well represented compared to the US population. There's that. No fat women in film are shown as LGBTQIA+, which is a stark finding given that LGBTQIA people make up 7.1% of the US population. There is this one weird caveat. So fat women characters 50+ are well represented compared to the US population. The numbers go as 37.9% compared to 34.2%. When it comes to non-fat women characters, they are nearly twice as likely as their fat women counterparts to be depicted as fashionable, 17.6% compared to 9.5%, and 6 times as likely to be portrayed as better looking than average, 52% compared to 6.7%. It's more likely than not that fat plus size characters are depicted as stupid. It is 4.8% compared to 2.9%, and that 2.9% represents non-fat women characters. And it should also be noted that fat women are twice as likely to be portrayed as funny compared to their non-fat women character counterparts, which is 52.4% compared to 26.5%. When it comes to plus size representation, especially when it comes to black women and femmes, I will note in this report that they have noted that black plus size women have received the most representation out of any other racialized group in film and media in the US. So why does this stand out to me, and why does this matter? It all goes back to caricatures, meanings, and origins, aka he, America, loves and hates his big mama. Let's discuss caricature. What is caricature? A caricature is an exaggeration by means of often ludicrous distortion of parts or characteristics. And for black women, we have 3 caricatures in film and media that drastically distort our image. In turn, these 3 caricatures have fundamentally shaped the way that black girls, femmes, and mass presenting folk and women have been viewed in real life RRL since the first minstrel shows in the 19th century. The 3 caricatures that have haunted plus size black women and femmes are as follows: the Mammy, the Sapphire, and the Jezebel. So, the Mammy, one of the oldest representations of plus-size black women, she is self-sacrificing, asexual, and neglectful of her own family's needs. She's a caricature. This character is incredibly prominent during the time of the first minstrel shows, which is where she was first seen. Written under the gaze of white supremacy, she would never be fleshed or humanized, all because of the hue of her flesh and the amount of flesh she possessed. And if you wanted, you could have your own mammy as a piece of china, a plate to eat off of, a doll for your pet to gnaw at. You could even buy some flour, some syrup. You could buy food that contains her image. Mammy was never meant to be seen as a person, but as an accessory, always ready to be an assistant, the go-to friend who carries all of her wisdom in her full figure. The weight of the world is her burden to handle, and no one ever checks up on her until they need something from her with urgent desperation. With life outside of her allegiance to her friends and managing their lives, and if she's not taking care of her friends, she's most likely taking care of a horrible slave master. Who is she? Has she ever truly lived? And who are her descendants? Are they alive and well? Mammy had a daughter in her late teens. Her name is Sapphire. Now, Sapphire was born from misogynoir and rage, and her rage burned bright, red, hot, cold, fueled her fury. And she made that everyone's problem. The epigenetic trauma of witnessing through the womb, might I add, that no one has ever truly considered your mammy's feelings made you vengeful. The Sapphire, written by the gaze of white supremacy yet again, sported the image of the black woman who was violent, bitter, and distasteful, obnoxious. But alas, she's a caricature. An unjustifiably angry black woman, just mad for no goddamn reason. Always have something smart to say, an explosive crybaby that no one mourns, tries to save, or even hear out. But just like Mammy, does she have an actualized life? More often than not, no. She's the reason why today black men, and not all, claim that black women wish to dominate the man, are in some sort of competition with black men for the title of who's the most masculine. She's the excuse as to how black women are the most masculine of all women. Mammy was loved for living in her designated position in the shadows, answering to her white family's beck and call. But for Sapphire, being unjustifiably angry, which made her pathetic, she was always hated. Caricatures created by white men to entertain the white masses, and they did just that, entertain. But at what cost? Especially to the way that we view plus-size black women and femmes and mass-presenting folk. In turn, the media has made fat people the butt of the joke, constantly and consistently for centuries. The media is just a medium to express said hatred as entertainment, and thus a way to bond over shared hatred to feel a sense of superiority. Yay! What about Jezebel? So, Jezebel was the younger sister to Sapphire. Jezebel was never really played by plus-size black women until much later due to the need of the Madonna whore complex that we have in black media. Jezebel was also born red hot, but instead of rage, she was fueled by intense desire. Jezebel was reduced down to one thing: sex. Being over-sexualized is her superpower, and the way that she intends to reach her desires and aspirations, which is also why she is also hated. The Jezebel is the antithesis of the Mammy, and both are on the same racist scale of representation of black women. The Mammy, Sapphire, and Jezebel are all reasons why we walk around today with biases about black women being aggressive, overly sexually available, and the best person to turn to when you're in need. These three caricatures have lived complex lives. They're made under a static image, but that has done them a major disservice. These three are byproducts of living under a white supremacist society that has systemic misogynoir pulsing through its veins. This country's entertainment industry was built off the image of hating black women, but specifically fat black women, and in turn that hatred birthed and fueled a hatred of all black women. The hatred of one specific body type as a source of entertainment has been the blueprint of hating all who is considered the other under white supremacy. Whiteness, white people. The hatred of black, fat women was used to prop up and pedestalize white women as the beauty, lifestyle, and character morale standard. Respectability and the performance of whiteness all stem back to anti-black fatphobic caricature. These three are alive, and right now, currently thriving under fascism, online digital fascism. And with the use of AI, these caricatures are showing up right now as I speak on our For You pages. These caricatures, that were once played by white men in wigs in black paint doing blackface, then transitioned over into black people, black actors taking shitty acting jobs, to now us being replaced in our own racist white supremacist image by bots. Why is this the image that they wish to portray black women as? I thought Annie was the mama. There's a very present resentment that is visible in the black community towards fat black women, femmes, and mass presenting folk. And this resentment isn't new. I think, this is my theory, that it's much older than we would like to accept. I can easily say that this all goes back to slavery and white supremacy doing a number on us, and I'd be right. Because I would be right. But there is something deeper here, though. The root of the representation discussions that happen online every time a black plus size person is in the spotlight. In short, the black community hates fat people. Mic drop. The black community hates fat people because of colonization, white supremacy, and because of the heavy use of caricature in the early years of theater, film, and media in the Western world. Representation matters, especially to black people. I think that the black film and media space has spent the past century trying to undo this image made by white supremacists in the film and media space for the entertainment of all. Fat people, specifically fat black people, are treated like an embarrassment in ways that people outside of the black community don't necessarily understand. In my Hey Weird Black Girl video, I discuss my struggles of respectability politics and never fully feeling embraced by the black community for fitting into a box of the quirky black girl. And this applies here. Being a fat black person comes with a resentment from the black community because when you're fat, you're seen as deviant. Deviance, the quality of not being usual and being generally considered to be unacceptable. Let's talk about Sarah Jarty Bartman, aka Hottentot Venus. I will refer to her as Jarty. I may be saying it wrong, and if I am, please beat my ass in the comments. Whoop it, tear it up. Jarty is known globally for her appearance and how her body sparked discussion on morality and respectability. Like many black women, she was overly sexualized at an early age due to Dutch colonization in South Africa during the 19th century. She was born into the Quena people, a small group within the Khoi tribe. The women and the men from this tribe fascinated the Dutch colonizers in this area for their genitalia. Like many in the Khoi, Jarty had the condition known as steatophagia, resulting in extremely protuberant buttocks due to a buildup of fat. In short, and in layman's terms of today, she was thick, but like thicker than a ball of oatmeal and grits. Very, very voluptuous. And I meant that in no disrespectful way either, but just, yeah. So Sarah was married, and her husband was murdered by the Dutch colonizers in the area. She had no major male figures in her life to rely on for safety and protection during this time period, as her father was also murdered by Dutch colonizers because I don't know if you ever thought about this, but colonization is deadly. When your people are being exterminated by colonial powers in order for capitalism to survive and thrive and essentially break down cultures and societies, people die as a result of power plays that should have never necessarily happened if people just minded their goddamn business and stayed in their goddamn continent. But we're here now, so it is what it is. As a widow, she went to Cape Town looking for work. She was hired to work for a family on their farm. And this is where Alexander Dunlap developed a fascination of her. and essentially kidnapped her and began her extensive tour exhibition where she was seen all throughout Europe. She was kidnapped in her teens. 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 Keep that in mind. She was kidnapped in her teens. In these exhibits, Jarty would be placed in a cage wearing skin-tight colored clothing to be watched, poked, prodded, laughed at under the white gaze. And we know little information from her perspective as she was still, yes, an enslaved person who was being toured all throughout Europe. However, it should be noted that Jarty is the most documented Hottentot Venus, and yes, there are other Hottentot Venuses, and yes, there were white men who were going around Africa, the continent of Africa, as they were destroying already pre-established tribes and areas to create European guidelines for where their countries were. They were going around and essentially kidnapping plus size black women and making us circus acts. So so she was the most documented Hottentot Venus because there was a court case held on her behalf that combated the use of Jarty being used in eugenics study. She, as in her image, was then archived. And so it also should be noted that Jarty died at the age of 26. She was kidnapped as a teenager, bro. I'm saying that she was kidnapped as a teenager because that's probably more likely the case. But then also, if she wasn't kidnapped as a teenager, she was still kidnapped in her early 20s. And here's the other caveat. Even though she passed, she was still being used as a spectacle of entertainment, as her brain, her skeleton, and her sexual organs were all put up in display in Paris until the great horrible fucking year of 1974. Her remains weren't repatriated and buried until 2002. So she wasn't put to rest until a year after I was born. Imagine you die at 26. And almost 100 years later, because I could be wrong, I don't care about math anymore when it comes to this. The fact remains that your remains were on display longer than you were alive. One thing remains is that her body was used as a marker of morality and respectability. You were given a body at birth, and how that body appears sets a precedent on how people will choose to perceive you and then later treat you. To live in a fat body, people have perceived me as lazy and ugly. I cannot control those thoughts or biases as they don't belong to me, but I do remember being in rooms where I felt totally uncomfortable being there because of how people were describing fat people as the one lonely fat person in the room. I've been berated in real life for merely looking at a person while fat. I say all of this to say that fatphobia is a social construct that upholds white supremacy. Non-fat people look at fat people existing as fuel to stay non-fat and to aim for being considered a skinny legend, a skinny icon. Not all. If you know you're not that type of person as a non-fat person, I guess kudos to you, but I feel like I have to make that clear that I'm not prejudging all non-fat people as being fatphobic weirdos. However, a great portion of your population are, so I don't really know what to say about that, but I don't know, check your people, bro. In this online space, I've witnessed multiple mutuals, and mutual, if you don't know, are other people out there on the internet as you who follow you and you follow them back, so y'all are mutually following each other. I've witnessed mutuals getting dragged for their weight and their presence in spite of their weight online as well. I think to many though, being fat is a cardinal sin that removes any slice of humanity from your being. You're less human because you're fat. You're not a complex person. You're just being reduced down to being fat. And no matter how much you try to physically hide or shrink yourself, at the end of the day, people will still point you out as the fattest person in the room, especially when you're black. Respectability politics is a set of rules and principles that you, as a black person, should follow in order to be perceivably respectable in the black community as well as outside of the community. And this is done no matter what room you're in. You are a representation of blackness, and with that blackness you better be the best representation you can be, because anti-blackness is so integral in our white supremacist system. This goes back to my earlier point where I stated that because the media representation of black people being created, written, and produced and directed under anti-black white supremacist gaze for entertainment for so long by white folk, having to witness plus-size black people be used as the representation of blackness under a negative gaze has altered the ways that we view fatness as a society, but more specifically in the black community. I think this is a major reason why we don't view or we don't have much positive or neutral plus-size representation in our own community. We're often turned into gags, comic relief, harmful jokes. And these are not just relative to black media. I've seen them in white media as well, because hello, I'm good artist still, I guess, and we're not all as creative as we think we are. But fat people specifically fat black people, are often used as like morality monitors for society beyond our control. Fat black people often face projection because audiences have been taught to do so, to project their feelings and negative connotations onto us, taught to compare how they, the audience, look and possibly feel better about themselves depending on the distance between themselves and the figures in the media.
Hey, hi guys! So my name is Pink Rhythmic online, also known as Tracy. I am an upcoming inspiring author and illustrator. I post on YouTube under the handle Pink Rhythmic, TikTok Pink Rhythmic, and I also am active on Instagram. And also my pronouns are she, her.
Hi everybody, my name is Kiana. My pronouns are she, them. If you want to follow a fellow plus size influencer, my TikTok is Fat Girl World with the PH, and for the girl part is U. And then my Instagram is the same handle.
Well, I'm Tamaya, and I go by she, her for pronouns. You can catch me on Instagram, Sunny, SUNNI ._Deez, DEEZ, or YouTube at a.safeplace.
My name is Felix. I go by any pronouns, so I don't really have a preference. My social media handles, I'm Roses of Blood on everything. There are some that has like an underscore with my birth year, 2006. And then Sonic High School Asylum, that's my passion project I'm working on, that does feature some inclusive representation.
My name is Deary. I go by any pronouns. You can follow me on Delightful Talks on, I believe, YouTube. And then on TikTok, it's just Delightful Talks _.
Do you exist?
Exist?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry, it's a little scary to start off with.
Me, yes.
Yes, completely. I will take up as much space as possible. I'm here. I exist. I will put my existence here.
Yes.
Yes, I would like to say I exist. I exist as myself. I exist.
Do you live a life that is rich with narrative, a story that is more than your body size or just even your outer appearance, with experiences to match?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say, well, maybe, I mean, for the most part, yes. I would say like a good example is like I go raving, but then, the people I associate with there and the rave scene in general is a very like predominantly queer space. But like I think I would answer yeah. I'd answer yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm not gonna get into detail, but it's like I'm not that type of person people will say an assumption about me. I'm not gonna fit that assumption. I'm the type of person if you say something about somebody to me, Nine times out of 10, I'm not going to match that energy. Like, I am my own person. You need to talk to me to understand who I am before you decide to make that assumption. That's also why, also, plus size influencing came into my life. It's like people make too many assumptions. So, let me teach you about how to not do it.
Yes.
Yes and no. I feel like because of who I am and because of how the world is, the first thing they do see is that I'm a black and I'm plus size. And then me being like queer and autistic, it's sometimes a disconnect, but because that is a disconnect, it's just a part of my story. My story is that I am me and who I am, and who I am is all of these things, and that is my story because who I'm me.
What makes a main character? And this can be traits, personality, or other concepts that come to mind when thinking about main characters.
I would say a main character is someone who doesn't necessarily hide from the spotlight and has, even like from the last question, a very rich narrative within themselves, but it also influences their environments or even other people's narratives.
I feel like being a main character is someone that like takes initiative of your life. You control your life. You have your own agency. You don't let things happen to you. You take charge. And even if you're not super confident, it's just knowing and being assured that you own your life and you have the option to change whatever makes you unhappy. Like I feel like just knowing that you have control, that's what makes you a main character.
In my opinion, I feel like main characters, they don't have to be like fully good, but they have to be kind of complex, but in a good way. I feel like what makes a main character is someone that has goals, ambitions, they have drive, but they also aren't someone that would be willing to just throw someone down to get themselves up, someone that still, regardless of how ambitious they are, they're still able to have like a decent moral compass and be willing to like give a helping hand and things like that. Just a decent human being, you know?
When I think about a main character, I think of there's so many types of main characters in the world. So I don't think good or evil. I think a person that is going through something, going through a change, and they learn throughout the story and become a different person. You know what I mean? Or they expand to who they are. That is a main character.
Do you feel valued as a consumer of media in this current landscape?
I would say no, not genuinely, because as someone, woman, black, and then I'm not the skinniest, then I feel like at times media tries to pander or create like very low quality stuff for us, especially with all that intersectionality. But there's rarely a time when I feel like it's genuine. I would say I don't feel genuinely valued right now.
Me personally, not necessarily. I feel like when it comes to just like finding media to watch, I feel like I have to put almost like a lot of effort just like browsing on TikTok or browsing on like Reddit, for example. For me, as like a queer, black, and slightly neurodivergent individual, I feel like it's very hard for me to find media where black women aren't portrayed in like a kind of like over sexualizing manner. Like the way that, for example, white actresses and like characters are just able to simply exist without like all these like stereotypes. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's so hard for me to see that with like black characters. Like, what's that show name? I think Invincible, I think. The main character, he does date a black woman, but she's obviously like, they don't end up together. And then he gets with Eve. And it's just like, there's so many different examples. And then I feel like when it comes to media that I watch, when I finally find a main character that's a black woman that's not over sexualized or like in the background, I feel like it's hard for me to get into the fandoms of those spaces because people kind of treat that one character different.
No, I feel as though I'm an afterthought or not even considered. Yeah, I 100% agree with what I just wrote because it's true. Every day I can go to the mall right now, and the fact that I can only go to like Forever 21 or Ashley Graham, I can barely fit stuff in Victoria's Secret. That's messed up. Or
Mm-hmm.
how people like, I forget his name, he's a very famous designer. His name starts with a K, and he has like this whole thing about a cat. Him talking about how, no, I don't want fat people to shop on my clothes. Or the guy who made Lululemon saying, my clothes aren't for fat people.
Mm-hmm.
That's not very considerate. Or when I go to TV, why are there no fat people? And there's no fat people, or there are no black people. And the combination of the two,
Mm-hmm.
oh, they're just like, now you're just asking for a lot.
How important is plus size representation in the media that you consume?
I would say it's not that important. It's not like I'm very indifferent to it. However, if there is going to be a plus size person, um, it needs to I'm really not a fan of like the negative stereotypes for the sake of just being a negative stereotype. There's no character arc, there's no plot building. They're just there to be fat and negative and a negative stereotype. That's pretty much it.
I feel like it is so, so, so incredibly important to have plus size representation. And I feel like, especially to have just like accurate plus size representation. I feel like a lot of times, what do you call it? When I watch a lot of movies, and even animes, because I watch a lot of Japanese media, I feel like plus size women are always put in the same four categories. Like, I'm so tired of like seeing a plus size girl being the main character might date her as a joke, or she's like a second option, or she's loved in the dark, or she's like there for comedic relief, or she's there to make the main protagonist look better. Or it's like, or also as well, I feel like in a lot of films as well, I feel like for a plus size girl to be a main character, she has to prove herself so much. Like she has to be like, it has to be like, well, she's plus size, but she can dance well, she can sing well.
Yeah.
Plus size women can simply just exist and deserve to exist the same way as everyone else. And I feel like, especially for young girls, and I have close friends of mine that talk about how they feel a certain way about the way a lot of like plus size people are represented. Like it's just, it makes you feel a certain way about yourself when you're seeing that people that look like you, like they are kind of in the back wall, like in the shadows. It's just, I don't know. And it kind of reflects in society in a bigger way. It feels like a lot of times, regardless of your talent or whatever, like your people mainly prioritize looks and hold you to a standard when it's like, who are you to tell me how my body should look like? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially with like Japanese media. I remember when I watched Kiss Him Not Me as a kid, like the premise of that anime is the fact that the main character, she was plus size and then she loses weight in like a week, and then all the guys love her, but when she gains weight they make her lose the weight again. And so basically the point is to show that she's beautiful when she loses the weight. There's so many medias with these tropes, these beauty makeover tropes, when it's like you're showing a bad message, especially to young girls that look a certain way, that the only way that a man will love them or they will have friends or they'll be considered beautiful is if they lose drastic amounts of weight extremely fast. Like
Mhm.
there's so many issues that people don't realize with the type of media that's being put out or that there is available.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's so important to have just like healthy and accurate and just non-toxic plus size representation in media.
How was the representation that was in Sinners impacted you, in particular with Annie and the discourse that has been going on about Annie and potentially being seen as the mom, the aunt, the mammy? Yes.
Oh, child. That right there. Okay, Sinners, I would say that was amazing. And I love how they did that because even with the haters who are trying to put Annie as an auntie or a mom figure,
Mhm.
um, I really feel like that shock was needed. And it was a shock, even for a lot of Black people. I don't know, I mean, not for me, but yeah. And I just really love Annie because there was no like condescending like undertone, or there was no like, there was just, she was there. She was there and she was integral to the plot. There was nothing, she was not disposable. And even with her character, spoiler alert, even with her character, passing on, she
Mhm.
was still integral to the plot.
Yes.
Her spirit was strong. And she was just an all around great person. I would say one of the best characters, not the best character of the movie. So, and I think especially with people trying to say, like, oh, I thought she was the aunt or the mom. Like,
Hmm.
really? Now, I know y'all didn't just see Michael B. Jordan go down on that one.
So, what are your thoughts on social media and how that has played into plus size representation that is leading into representation in mainstream media?
Yeah, we see a couple plus size influencers here and there that are like more into fashion, but it's always, I feel like I see the same thing, if that makes sense. Like I get repetitive in fashion that I've already seen, or weight loss journeys that I've already seen,
Right.
or it's just a lot of repetitiveness in the influencing community when it comes to being plus size.
Do you think film and media will ever get to a better place in terms of plus size representation?
I honestly don't think so right now, especially with the current political state. Um, I don't want to get too much into our current president, but with the way people are supporting him, we are very much like leaning closer towards traditional values
Mhm.
and not in a good way. And so with that comes with this need to conform, and typically that would mean being, um, being like white, straight, cis, skinny, stuff like that, like almost like fitting in a cookie cutter.
Okay, so we're now going to discuss traits or like traits that are commonly associated with plus size characters in media. You listed hungry, lazy, sloppy, and pig-like, which are typically more, the negative traits that are often associated with plus size representation. Um, do you have any theories behind why these traits are often associated with plus size representation?
I think it goes back to conservatism.
Hmm.
Because honestly, I was talking to a coworker about this, but literally, like, it's weird. Back then, being bigger was seen as a beautiful thing. If you look at the picture of Aphrodite, she literally has a tummy.
Yes.
Oh, but now, in the day and age, our day and age, people believe fat people are all these things, and I really think it's because one, society is pushing all of this to hate ourselves. They want us to hate ourselves so we can buy those products to make us skinnier and for us to be quote unquote happy. Truth is, you're not going to be happy. And even if you are happy, now your bones are hurting, now your teeth hurt, you're sunken in, and you lose yourself. It's just a money machine. You want more money.
Hmm.
Or, like, literally, it's just so, like, sad.
So, does the bias also like play into the way that you create art?
Hmm.
Like, do you center the bias when you're creating art, or do you just throw it away?
Ooh, that is a good question. That is something that I'm currently tackling because I would say, especially in the beginning, I did center it. The bias is strong, and I was placing myself in that box. I was like, what kind of artist can I be, and what am I gonna put out there? But now I have actually like come to the realization I'm actually implementing like, okay, there is no bias. I mean, even if there is for them, it's not for me. That's I can't control what they're going to think if I feel this, even if it doesn't make sense to them or they never see anything like that, okay, oh well, they'll be shocked. Now they've seen it. So I would say it's a process that I'm going through. But yeah.
If you create media, which you stated you have, yay, is curating a diverse cast important to you?
Um, I'm working on this series. Oh my God, so excited. Working on this series called Sonic High School Asylum.
Hmm.
I have the pilot out on YouTube. As of filming this right now, it's currently sitting at 40K views. There are like characters that are diverse and stuff like that. I did plan to include dark humor, edgy humor, and kind of take a slight inspiration from stuff like Class of '09 and Sonic High School Asylum.
Mhm.
because I do love that era of the internet where you could just say anything.
Mhm.
I did like that, but at the same time, I am going about this in a like, hey, I'm also a minority myself. I
Mhm.
want to be able to make fun of myself, and I'm gonna find like-minded people.
Yeah.
And I don't have an issue with people who are a little bit more yeah, a little bit more sensitive.
Mhm.
But like as someone like myself who isn't as much, I just really like that era, and Sonic the Hedgehog is just one of my special interests. So I decided to combine the two. But Sonic High School Asylum is an AU, which is short for an alternate universe.
Mhm.
So the way I've decided to portray some of these characters is different. So
Mhm.
I've taken inspiration from people I've grown up with, myself, my friends. So there are people who I have, well, they're anthropomorphic characters, but I've coded them to be specific, like minority labels. Like, I'm non-binary, so
Mhm.
I've coded Silver the Hedgehog in this AU to be a trans woman. And I also have a trans woman voicing her.
Mhm.
And then I have I have some characters that are just coded to be Latino just because I'm
Mhm.
Mexican. I have Latino and Hispanic people voicing those characters as well.
Mhm.
Um, and then there is a few characters that I've coded to be black because the Sonic fandom headcanons them to be black.
Yeah.
This whole series is just kind of like a whole like, okay, I'm gonna make fun of some people's headcanons, but I'm gonna have fun with that. I'm gonna have fun with that. And I'm not gonna like voice everything. I'm gonna reach out to people who are black. I'm gonna reach out to people who are trans, be like, hey, like, you know, I want to be offensive, but I don't want to be too offensive because this is 2025, right?
Yeah.
I want to have fun with it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like I'm finding a right balance.
So, as of currently, I am working on my upcoming debut novel, and thank you. And I do always strongly believe that it's so important to have like accurate representation in media. Like the way I always looked at it was like, I want when people watch something that I ever make, I want them to just look at my characters and look at my world and just see like that's a reflection of like the real world. Because realistically, there's not just one race. Like as someone that reads books, there's many times where I'll read fantasy novels and like everyone's white. When it's like realistically, like I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but it's like let's be real. Like everyone looks the same in some people's like imaginations and stuff like that. And I feel like it's just inaccurate. It's not true. And also there's no fun in that. When everyone looks the same, acts the same, has the same customs, like it's boring. I feel like I love creating media that truly just shows the lens of the world and shows that how people can coexist with one another in a beautiful way and people could just live differently but just live together. So like for me it's so important and yeah.
So you said yes and no with have you ever struggled looking for representation in the media that you consume? Why?
Um, well, since I am working on trying to produce a plus size princess, I want to make a movie with Disney. I don't know if I can get that far, but I do want to make a plus size princess, and then I also do want to make a plus size Marvel character. So it's so hard to find a character that can actually exist without being the friendly, funny fat friend or the person that's always eating. Like I don't want that represented in the film that I want to make. So it's like, how am I gonna make a movie if I don't know where to go?
Mhm.
So yeah.
What are your feelings on the current film landscape in regards to diverse representation? You also briefly touched on this as well, and I would love for you to share more of your thoughts on that matter.
So in my thing, I said that humans thrive off media, especially now with technology. Um, since like the beginning of humans, we write. We wrote on caves. We wrote on little pictures. We've done books. Now technology, it's media, and to see yourself in those media means that people won't forget you, people will remember you, and people will know that you exist. And now with technology, when it comes to diverse, people think that it's this type of woke mafia, these woke liberals. I don't believe that at all. I just believe that people want to see themselves.
Yeah.
And if you want to see and I don't think that's a bad thing to want.
Yeah.
I remember back when the Little Mermaid came out, a bunch of little black girls were like, "Oh, I see her. She's me. She's just like me." And how could you hate on something like that when someone is just trying to have such a good time? And when it came to being a plus size person, when I saw the Barbie, the plus size Barbie that was in the Barbie movie, all that mattered. The fact that they're making plus size Barbies, all that matters to me. The fact that Monster High are coming out with different body types of their dolls, that matters to me. That matters to those types of little girls who didn't have that. I feel like but they're trying to push it as, I feel like there's a difference between something wanting to actually be diverse and something to be like a cash grab. But also, in my opinion, some of those cash grabs, some people actually generally like.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I just wish that we would just stop fighting and just enjoy the media, enjoy how diverse it is. Because honestly, even the most nichest thing you probably like, someone's going through, or someone can relate to.
We can only get that representation if we support people that are trying to, infiltrate these spaces, because bigger corporations are not going to budge or like open up what type of stuff they could show, because they already have money. They have connections, they have everything. They don't care if they lose one view or two. But if we support and like kind of put our money towards smaller like films and all that stuff, we could slowly get that change, if that makes any sense.
Thank you to the lovely folks who decided to interview with me. I am immensely grateful. I'm grateful that you decided to take the time to chat with me. And for that, mwah. Why does this topic mean so much to me? I grew up, again, in the early 2000s. But also, I was a teenager in the 2010s, which did not help. Because I was there for Tumblr. I was there for everything. Rasputia, Precious, Peaches, Lizzo, being called Mammy, and any other fat black character, influencer, or celebrity. It don't matter. The point is that I have had so many encounters with people, both online and in real life, where our introduction to each other is where they're like, "Oh my god, you look just like Lizzo." And that's usually, I guess, their way of like telling me that they perceived me as pretty. But when they are perceiving me as like the opposite, as ugly, they use the 4 or 5 aforementioned. The same way non-fat black people seek their own version of representation, I seek that for myself. Fatness is just that, a characteristic that has the ability to change and shift, unlike many traits. However, whether or not a person chooses to lose weight, that's their prerogative. I don't give a damn. I could give less of a fuck. But I will still always urge for better representation regardless. Because again, I am a fat person who would much rather live the entirety of their life as a fat person. Yeah. It is what it is. That's my choice. Fat people visibility in media increases and decreases in waves. I'm grateful for the body positivity and neutrality movements of the 2010s because it started a conversation. And I would be lying now more than ever that, we're now witnessing one of the most fascist waves to come as a result of said freedom of like a decade. Now that fatphobia is on the rise, and now more than ever, there's an ongoing disappearance of fat plus-size bodies on runways, commercials, and film and media spaces. I have to say first and foremost that I am grateful that Ryan Coogler casted the ever-glowing, talented Wunmi Musaku Annie in Sinners. And I hate that her character was reduced to just being another potential mammy. I did not necessarily like the discussions that were held about Annie online because her character carried such a depth. One thing about Annie in Sinners was that she was respected in every room that she entered by everyone there. She was loved, she was sexual, she was resilient. And I can't necessarily say that I remember a time where I felt so strongly towards a character. And maybe that's because she felt real in ways that I am real. Not reduced to a shallow caricature or what she can do for other people, but a person experiencing a glimmer of life that we were blessed to witness as patrons in the audience. Here are my final thoughts and my conclusion for this video. First and foremost, yes girl, I know that the video late. I do. It was supposed to drop in June. It's dropping in October. Why? Because your favorite MB got a job. And with that new job has came 3 meltdowns in the past 2 months. So there's that. Also, on top of that, I've gotten sick at least 3 times since recording. And that has drastically pushed back a lot of things as well. So between me having a new job, a new career, and getting sick 3 times, it has really pushed me back a lot. So I deeply apologize for uploading this late. But also, it took me a long time to finally get into the booth and edit. Okay. In conclusion, the gag of plus-size representation in the film and media space is as follows. For one, the Black media space has been working over a century to curate an aesthetically pleasing image of Black, Sulan American culture in mainstream Western media. And in order to curate such an image, what is typically done is the pushing down on Black plus-size people through the use of characters in media to prop up non-fat Black characters instead. Therefore, Black media as a whole, in general, has a fatphobia problem that we need to address. Secondly, the issue with plus-size Black characters in mainstream media is that they are often used as characters in service to the main character. And what I mean by this is that the Black plus-size character, or plus-size characters in general, are undervalued if they're not actively doing something in service of helping the main character achieve what they're seeking. Then the only reason why they're there in the media in the first place is to be mocked. In addition to my last point, Black media wouldn't exist today if it wasn't for the use of fat Black people and their image being used in minstrel shows for white supremacist media to persist and to exist today. And a strange turn of events, racism is a primary source as to why the entertainment industry exists in the way that it does today. Finally, the need for plus-size representation in media existed since the beginning of media in the Western world. The media needs to exist where plus-size people are not akin to their ability of servitude. We need plus-size representation in the film and media space because plus-size people will always continue to exist as we have been existing since the beginning of time. Our representation matters as it shows our existence through good, bad, and neutral events. Plus-size people and our existence and our experiences shouldn't be made to feel invisible, all because of man-made concepts that vilify our existence.
We are here, and you will not silence our voices.
I am worthy of being the main character because I exist. I am not required to offer anything to anyone to be seen and heard. My existence is enough. To be fat is not synonymous with living in the shadows like a vampire. If you wish to write, direct, or produce media, I want you to think about your impact, your words and actions. Specifically, think about the images that you wish to live on when you're no longer here. Those people who created the Mammy, the Sapphire, and the Jezebel are no longer here, but their descendants are. And they are still actively pushing those images. And the legacy of their horrific, annoying, insufferable, racist ancestors. Do you undervalue fat people because of their fatness? Do you carry unchecked biases? We need more representation, specifically neutral and positive representation for fat Black people in the Black community, regardless of the possibility of blowback. Who is the Black community without its fat members?